Let's talk about data. So many different platforms out there, so many different things you hear about: good data, bad data, pricing all over the place, just a lot of questions and stuff that you just may not be able to decipher or read between the lines on. So let me give you a brief on data, how it works, what you need to look out for, and really how do you use this whole world of data that you hear talked about to your advantage instead of having it confuse you and become an issue for you. So essentially what you're doing when we talk about data, when we talk about list building, is you're going to take two different databases and we're going to cross them over to get to who we want to, okay? The two different databases being property records. So the stuff that you see on a county auditor site, the basic information on the property, including the owner name, square footage, bed, bath, county codes, all that kind of stuff. So the stuff that's basically public assessor data per county. And then there's what we'll call contact data. So cell phones, home phone numbers, relatives, email addresses, confirmed mailing addresses, all of those things. These are the two worlds that exist that we're crossing over. Two very different worlds. When you look at data and you start to see different platforms, what you need to realize is two things. One, most are concerned with the skip trace data first. The skip trace is secondary to what you put into the skip trace. Here's what I mean. Into a skip trace platform, if you put in the person who owned the property for 15 years that sold it 2 years ago, if you put in their name with their property address, you're going to get their contact information because that's what you ask the skip trace to send you. Give me this person with this address. Well, they have history of being associated with that address, so they will match on that. That may not be the current owner anymore. Like I said, they may have sold it 2 years ago, even 3 months ago, 6 months ago. You're still going to get a hit. You're still going to get that information and you're still going to market to them, but they're no longer the owner anymore. So that's wasted marketing dollars. This happens more often than you'd realize, and it's because the focus is off, because there's not enough put on the property list side of it and understanding these base records and why they're so important to the whole game. So the property data is first and foremost what's crucial, and then the skip trace becomes the secondary crucial piece, mostly because there are different tiers, different levels of sources out there. The biggest difference being pricing and accuracy. So let's break it down real simply for you. One, property data. Essentially, unless you're going direct to the assessor site and pulling this direct from the county, essentially all property data, all list building that you're doing out there is coming from one of 3 to 4 big vendors that basically go across the country, get all the county data, put it into one big thing so that you don't have to go to each county on your own. They amass it, big platforms buy that, lease it annually, and then we have all the property data for every parcel in the country, and those get updated from the vendor. Depending on who that vendor is, depending on their processes, and depending on the platform that's providing you that data, it has different update frequencies. So I've seen platforms that don't update it for 6 months. I've seen ones go a year. I've seen ones that update every day. You want the everyday updates, obviously. That's going to be the quickest. Not every one of them is perfect, but here's the thing to look out for. Are you getting data that is 6 months old, meaning it hasn't been updated in 6 months? And I want you to really focus about this and hear this because it's so crucial to something going on in the background that's misleading you in the KPIs and what the KPIs are actually telling you, right? So what'll happen is you will skip trace the list and you'll say, okay, I got a 95%, 98% hit rate. That's a good property list. But like I said, some of those may be old owners. So now you input that list into your marketing and you say, man, we just didn't get the same results. We got a lot of wrong number. We got a lot of, I don't own that property anymore. We got a lot of not interested. And by a lot, a significant percentage change once you sit down and you drill down the numbers. And this is something, by the way, is not made up. I see this every week still going on. What happens is that owner starts to change everything. Oh man, everything's broken. I got to tweak this, I got to tweak that. We end up pulling the list and run just a simple check. Ignore the phone numbers. Let's just look and see if for this list, if all of these owners, the name and the mailing address, are correct for who the current owner is. In some cases, those lists are 30% inaccurate. Think about that number. 30% of that list is either a previous owner that no longer owns the property, or the mailing address for that owner or the name is off in some way. And that name and mailing address being off will change the skip trace side and how that performs and the accuracy. So if 30% of that initial list, before I've even sent one piece of marketing, if 30% of that list is wrong, think about what that does to your overall numbers that come out. But more importantly, think about that huge amount of waste in time, energy, and spend that has gone out to old owners and gone through your team and burning up their time, all because the list that you pulled was 6 months old. This happens more often than you realize. So how do you protect yourself? How do you make sure this isn't going on? Couple things. One, you have to use a reputable provider. One of the ones that we use, Direct Skip, it's massive, it's updated daily. We use it because we're trying to eliminate those issues. Eliminate the issues of inaccuracy, right? It's one of the reasons we built the platform. It's one of the reasons we continue to use the platform. It's one of the reasons some of the biggest people out there use the platform, because they know that they don't have to worry about the consistency, the updating, the accuracy of the property list side, along with the skip trace side. And by eliminating that issue, now when we go and we drop a list in our marketing campaign that performed fine last week, we don't have to ask the question of, oh, am I getting bad data? We know that the data is sound, so it must be something else in our process. Think about the headache that eliminates now. That huge question mark goes away. And we're able to know that what we're putting into our marketing campaigns is highly accurate. We're not shooting ourselves in the foot with 30% of the list not being accurate right from the get-go. So this is a major point you have to look out for. And instead of just shopping things by price, realize that there's a trade-off. Because if you pay half the amount for those records, but 30% of it is inaccurate, your results aren't going to come out the way you want them to. You're wasting time and energy and money trying to save money, and it's actually shooting yourself in the foot, working backwards against you. So make sure that you eliminate that issue, but more importantly, make sure whoever you use, just get into the data and start poking around. If you go in there and you see a last sale date in your market of 6 months ago or a year ago, that's troublesome. That's pointing to the fact that, hey, there's 6 months of data missing for how those properties have moved around and who owns them and the transactions associated. And when you go apply your criteria to find your list segments, none of that's going to work properly anymore. It's going to be all inaccurate. So look out for that first and foremost. But, honestly, instead of worrying about it, just use the right source so that it never becomes a question. And I will not mention names, but there are some very big platforms out there that once you start investigating this way, you'll find what you thought to be very accurate and trustworthy are not updated on the frequency that you think. So much so that over the years, we built our own platform because we saw that going on so many times. So look out for it, eliminate it, just make sure that you're using a data source that you know is reputable, be able to call them up and ask them questions and hey, what's this, what's that, what does this mean? Even if you don't know how to search it, these are questions that you should be able to ask and should get straightforward answers to. And then just eliminate that issue so it doesn't become something that deters you from optimizing your marketing and getting that machine working the way you want it to.